I'm so glad we've taken this time to sit down and just have a chat about case studies, David, because we've known each other professionally for, God, is it coming up 20 years?
Wow.
Around that, I
Yeah.
think. Anyway, and we always discuss cases, and there are three specific cases that I'd like to hear from you, and I'm sure our listeners are very intrigued to hear about the and how you have used probiotic therapy to resolve three completely different presentations.
Yeah.
So, David, do you still see clients very regularly?
To be honest, no. I'm sort of I'm heading for mid-60s now, so semi-retirement.
Okay.
So I don't actually see many patients at the moment. But what I have got a reputation in the local community of being the go-to if people have an ailment, because they interact with so many people. So sometimes I give recommendations, and maybe not, maybe a bit prescriptive, because it's not the ideal, but sometimes people want a quick resolution, or they don't want to go through all the testing and stuff. And it's a conversation in the post office or in the park, So it's a little bit different, shall we say? But yeah, I've got three interesting case studies because, as you say, they're all different, and it's using a particular brand, which is Natren.
Okay.
And why Natren? Natren. The first thing I like is Natasha, the founder's passion for probiotics. When we first got into conversations with Natren, probably a couple of years ago, I have never ever met anyone so passionate about this field, this subject. And when you get to hear about Natasha's story and her upbringing and how she's committed a life to studying and producing what I regard as the best probiotic out there, and it's a company that just makes probiotics.
I love that.
And they're in control of every aspect of production, and that is a big plus too. And when you see the manufacturing facility, it's just unbelievable.
Because it's fair to say that many, probiotics are to a penny. You can walk into a health food store. You can actually walk into your local supermarket, and the word probiotic is you'll see it on the shelf, whether it's in a food or whether it's in. So the fact that they have their own manufacturing, can you just explain for you as a professional, and why is that such a unique selling point to you?
Well, I think, as you mentioned, so many brands include a probiotic in their range. But sometimes you wonder, how's that been selected? Is it just for the sake of adding a probiotic to the range because, it fills a gap? And I think with Natren, one, they've been manufacturing for so long, so refined processes, further refined. But also, literally every stage of manufacture is so closely monitored, every stage, to ensure consistency.
Yep.
And you do wonder sometimes, if you're bringing in a third-party company making probiotics, are you able to verify the production processes to the extent that Natren do?
Okay.
And actually, I do wonder how many of them actually do. And then when you look at the strains that Natren use, they've been tried and tested over decades. And the three, particular strains they use are well documented, and in my opinion, that they're effective at doing what they're doing.
Great. So let's dig into. So can you introduce us to your first case?
First case, I got an email from Danielle, and actually going right back a long, long time ago, I was a personal trainer for Danielle's mother.
Wow.
And she knew that I'd moved into nutrition and I'd helped her in the past. So she told her daughter, because she'd got an issue with Teddy, her son, and Teddy was 8 years old.
Right.
And what's the problem? Really bad reflux.
Okay.
So my first thought was, let's look at diet. So we evaluated the diet, and actually, it wasn't particularly good, I'll be honest. There was a lot of fast food in there. And actually, I was quite surprised because both Daniel and her mother are avid exercisers, and actually always gave me the impression of being really careful what they ate.
Okay.
Sometimes with children, though, and peer pressure and all that sort of thing, I know I had the same issue with Jack, my son, when he was young. He went to parties,
Yes, I was definitely
school,
a helicopter parent with
it was pizzas and stuff, and why can't I eat what everyone else eats?
Yes.
And I can understand sometimes it is very difficult and challenging, and sometimes we try and educate at maybe too early an age.
I definitely know.
But getting kids on board can be difficult. So what we tried to do was clean up the diet as best we could, whilst not creating a sort of alienation amongst his peers at school.
Okay.
And let's see what happens there. And we got a little bit of improvement, but not great.
And you said to me that you asked her, had she explored any other avenues at this point?
She hadn't initially, but then in the meantime, whilst we'd been cleaning up the diet, she went to the GP.
Right.
And the GP recommended Gaviscon.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So Gaviscon will sort it out. And then didn't hear from Danielle for some time. Tried to contact her on several occasions, but just presumed maybe things had got a little bit better.
Right.
But secretly knew that Gaviscon could never be a long-term solution. So in the end, I did get in contact with her, and I think it was probably 6 or 8 months later, and I said, Danielle, how are you getting on with Teddy? Saw a little bit of improvement in diet. Gaviscon made no difference whatsoever. And the bizarre thing was, he was still taking Gaviscon, despite the fact that we were getting no resolution of symptoms, which seemed a little bit odd.
So the GP was happy to leave an 8-year-old on Gaviscon for 6 to 8 months.
Yeah.
Right.
Bizarre. Maybe she didn't follow up as she should have done. Maybe. Then that got me thinking, H. pylori maybe?
Yeah.
Maybe H. pylori can be implicated in these type of symptoms. So I suggested testing for H. pylori antigen, stool. And cost is not particularly high, but she thought maybe I can get the GP to run the test.
Yes.
So I said, by all means, try. You might have a battle. So I sort of gave her a little bit of coaching on, symptoms associated with H. pylori and how it could be potentially implicated in these symptoms. So she went with the cheat sheet, and she saw the GP, and he did agree to run a H. pylori test. So ran the H. pylori, and it came back negative. And I'm always a bit sceptical of a lot of testing anyway. Is it truly a negative? Is it not? Anyway, we took it for what it was, and if it's negative, it's negative. So then I thought, let's be creative here. What can we do? Maybe it's a digestive issue. Maybe, we're not utilising the foods properly. That's causing some kind of digestive problem. So what I did was I started the Natren 3-step system. So it's using Megadophilus, bifidobacter, and digestolac. And what we did was I chose the dairy-free versions, and I chose the powders, because the advantage of powder is you can titrate.
I love that.
The dose up. Ideally, I might have maybe gone for Healthy Trinity, but because there's the 3 strains in the gel cap, it's quite a big capsule.
Yep.
And a child of that age can have difficulty swallowing. So let's go for the powders. And it was quite an investment, I'll be honest. There's it is if you're buying the 3 powders.
Yep.
But we bought the small ones. And so what we did was, one at a time, we started off with 1/4 teaspoon, and then built it up to 1/2 teaspoon. And then moved on to the next powder and titrated that in. Brought that in, and then finally finished off with digestolac titrated that in. And then we were starting to get better and better improvements in symptoms. First, we used Megadophilus. I'm just trying to remember the order we did it. We used Megadophilus first, I believe, and we probably got maybe a 20% resolution.
Okay.
We added in bifidobacter, and again, probably got a 20%. But when we added Digestolact and we got the 3 strains together, that's when we had the biggest improvement. And followed up probably after about 2 months, and it was a 90% resolution in symptoms.
90%.
Big difference. And actually, thinking back, one of the issues she had with Teddy was he was eating huge volumes of food, but not putting any weight. He was literally stick thin. And the good thing about this was that hunger had gone and he put on weight. So that was another positive effect of using the probiotics. So she used to say he's incessantly eating. It's bizarre how he's eating all the time.
Well, we know, I mean, the multiple interactions of that the microbiome plays, but certainly glucose management, glucose regulation, immunomodulatory. So incredible.
Yeah.
And he had any history of any obliteration, if you like, or potential obliteration of his microbiome? Had he had any antibiotic use as a child?
He was a C-section.
Right.
So that always, bit of a red flag there. So probable microbiome issues. And then there were a couple of rounds of antibiotics as a child.
Okay.
One quite extended. So again, probably microbiome behind these issues. And we've got 100% resolution now.
Great.
And we've titrated off all the probiotics. So she wanted to be ultra cautious, and I think we gave it 6 months, and then slowly weaned off. That was a really, really positive outcome.
What a lovely outcome.
Yeah, and the one thing I will say about Natren is tolerance is really, really good.
What do you mean by that?
Well, some probiotics you can, people say, oh, that didn't agree with me, or, I had an issue with that one.
Right.
Never had an issue with Natren. They're always extremely well tolerated.
Right.
And even at really quite high doses, sometimes you throw in a high dose, really well tolerated.
So I guess the beauty of those powders is that you can, for super sensitive clients,
start really low.
You can just use the
I've gone to micro dosing in some cases. Okay. If you're really, really worried, micro dose if appropriate, and then slowly build up. Always err on the side of caution. But like I say, never had an issue with Natren.
It's 4 micro, I think.
Oh,
there we
go. Didn't even know.
Okay, great. Okay, so that's a lovely outcome.
That's a nice one, isn't it? Yeah, and really, when you work with children, it's always really rewarding, isn't it?
Such a joy.
Really
such
rewarding.
A joy.
Especially if it affects school. And actually, the third case study was another one in a child that it was affecting performance.
Well, actually, should we talk about him, because it's another child?
It's another child, yeah. So this is Michael. And as I say, we live in a community where everyone knows everyone else, and I walked our dog in the park. We lived right next to we've moved since, but we lived right next to the park. Walking the dog, as you walk the dog, you speak to various dog owners, and Melanie sort of have a chat with her every now and again, only because she had a greyhound and we had a greyhound, so they used to have a chat, and we had a chat while the dogs were introducing themselves, and she said, I've really got a problem with Mike. I said, what's the problem? And she said, he's getting bouts of severe diarrhea and literally uncontrollable.
Poor little thing.
He's soiling himself in class, and you think, oh my God, the worst possible scenario.
And how old was
he? Was 8 years old at the time.
Awful.
So there's a follow-up to this, but originally I saw him when he was about 8 years old, and she was beside herself, and you can imagine the parent sending your child to school thinking, is this going to happen today?
Yeah.
He's a nervous sort of lad, I spoke to him, she brought him round, the first impression I got was, he was really nervous. Whether that nerves was as a result of, the problems at school, as a result, kids can be like them. So horrible, can't they?
So mean, yeah.
So it has happened 3 or 4 times. He didn't really want to go to school, but his mother sort of insisted he did go to school. But the one thing I remember about Michael was he was in the park a lot with his dog, with their dog, and he'd always be rolling around on the grass. And the one thing that annoyed me more than anything else was in the park, dog owners and picking up
feces.
Oh,
grim.
What was my number one? I had some quite interesting debates with people, was where they just didn't pick it up. It was acceptable not to pick it. How can that be acceptable? So it did cross my mind, actually, this kid, always in the park, always playing in the grass. Has he been exposed to feces?
Sure.
Under nails, hand to mouth, transmission of some kind of parasite.
Yep.
And when we looked at the pattern of when it happened, there was a slightly cyclical element to it. So that again gives you a little clue. So I said, I think we need to run a stool test.
Okay.
And mothers being mothers, they'll do anything with their kids. And it's not cheap, but we just ran a parasitology through Genova.
Which isn't that expensive.
So, I managed to sell, we don't want a whole profile. Let's just see if we find something on a parasitology. So, sure enough, we found Gentamoeba fragilis, which we know, and I was...
Right, yeah.
You don't joyful when you find something, but you are when it relates to symptoms.
Absolutely.
And I certainly know that that's related to diarrhea type symptoms. So... I looked at it and we had a chat, and I said I would probably treat this with Biocidin, and I use a liquid. Biocidin liquid, again, you can base it on body weight, you can titrate it up nice and slowly, and
so just as to interject for those maybe practitioners or clients listening, Biocidin is a herbal antimicrobial.
Yeah, and immunosupportive. So
yes, absolutely. It's a nice, gentle,
it's
but
a
very
lovely
effective
blend. Again, it's not too strong. You can titrate the dose. I actually like the taste of it, bizarrely.
I do,
but
we're quite odd.
We're weird,
people.
Yeah. But yeah, we added a bit of cordial or something to it, and
great.
We treated him. Because we went really slow, I had to extend the window a little bit. So we treated him over about 8 weeks.
Okay.
And then the suggestion was we followed it with probiotics. Now, this was probably 3 or 4 years ago, and we didn't have Natren. I suggested some kind of probiotic. I can't remember what it was, but I suggested a probiotic to reinoculate, and heard nothing. And then saw probably about 3 months later, and fine. No symptoms whatsoever.
Amazing.
Didn't even have contact details or anything, actually, for this client. So I sent the test to her. We ran it, got the results, saw her in the park.
Yeah,
it was that type
of thing.
Conversation. Very, not your traditional situation. But anyway, really good. Really effective, and she said, he's fine, he's back at school now, everything's great. All well and good. Never heard a thing from her up until probably 6 months ago. Now, we'd since moved, but she knows the lady in the post office. We take stuff to the post office. She got talking to to the lady at the post office. She got talking to my wife. If Dave's wife comes in, get her to contact me, left a number, so I got in touch with her. And we got the symptoms back again.
Right.
So not as bad as they were, but nevertheless, not symptoms that you want. So met her in the local coffee shop. Said, what do we do this time? I'm always a little bit, the more I'm reading about antimicrobials and their use and their overuse.
Yes.
I'm a little bit cautious now and tend to only use them as a last resort, and sometimes we need them. Sometimes with medications. I remember in the past, Giardia, for example, I had a client with Giardia. Nothing would shift Giardia, and you had to have a medication. And
yes.
Sometimes you need them, so. But it's only using them when needed. And I thought, right, I know I'd read a little bit about gentamoeba and its susceptibility, or how bifidobacter can improve symptoms from an immunomodulatory standpoint, and also from a anti-inflammatory standpoint. So I thought, right, okay, let's try bifidobacter. So she put a bottle of bifidobacter, and we titrated again, really, really slowly, although I could have probably been more aggressive because I know it's pretty well tolerated. So we got through a bottle of bifidobacter, which takes some time.
Yeah.
So 3 or 4 months even later, she got back in touch. My follow-up's poor. I tend to leave people to their own devices, and I think I probably said get in touch if there's a problem.
Yeah.
And total resolution symptoms.
Just on the bifidobacter?
Just on the bifidobacter, which I find, if that's gentamoeba, can bifidobacter eradicate? To be honest, I don't think
it can eradicate, but I think it can lower the cytokine profile, so which would cause us. So it can lower interleukin 10, I think, which will lower the osmotic effect.
Okay, well maybe that's the mechanism.
With that.
Maybe immunomodulatory. Maybe it's just kept the symptoms under control, but not taking the probiotics any longer, and no resolution of those symptoms. So. Another good case, really, isn't it?
Fascinating.
Yeah.
Fascinating.
So, again, pleased.
Yeah, of course.
A young kid at school can continue his studies.
Love that.
So, rewarding again. So, 2 nice little rewarding cases. The third one is different, but again, really, really interesting. This is Laura. And Laura is, I go to the gym, train with a friend of mine I know for a long time. He said one of his wife's friends had a problem. Can she call you? So I said, well, yeah, sure, she can call me. So, yeah, can I pass on your number? So spoke to Laura, and I said, Laura, what's the problem? She said, this is a weird one. She said, I work in a business environment. I get involved in lots of meetings, board meetings, etc., etc. My stomach rumbles really, really loud. And okay, and she said it's a standing joke. Now when I sit down in a meeting, that it's everyone's talking about it. It's a little bit disconcerting, and it's, to be honest, it's getting on my nerves now. Is there anything you can do? So, first of all, as you do, look at diet first, and not the best diet in the world, who's perfect, but it was relatively good, actually. So there was nothing there that immediately came to mind, might have a problem there. But the one thing I did notice was that there wasn't a lot of dairy in the diet. So I rang her back, actually, and I said, there's not a lot of dairy in your diet, I've just noticed. I take some notes down, there's not a lot of dairy. No, she said, I tolerated dairy up until about 5 years old. And then I started to get sort of weird digestive symptoms, and mother stopped giving me dairy. So I try and avoid it as much as I can. But every now and again, I eat it, I'm not aware I've eaten it, or I just think, what the hell? I sort of said, well, does that tie in with those grumbling? Does it get worse? Does it get better when you're exposed to dairy? Haven't really noticed any difference, really. Okay. So she was also quite poorly when she was young. She was also exposed to a lot of antibiotics when she was young.
Okay.
Okay. When did this rumbling start? From 18 onwards. How old are you now? She was sort of mid-30s.
Okay.
So it's gone on quite some time.
Yeah.
Right, I thought, okay, don't want to do any testing, wants a quick fix. This is a little bit prescriptive. I don't like doing it, but I think it might help. So I said, take Healthy Trinity.
And what's Healthy Trinity? Just clarify.
Yeah,
for
and
our
Healthy
listener.
Trinity is the 3 strains in one capsule.
Okay,
And
perfect.
it's a special encapsulated technology, so they're separated because they're competitive strains. So they're separated in the capsule.
That's right.
So, and they're released at different stages of the digestive processes. So it's safe going through the 3-step process. And I think in this case, it was probably more appropriate to try Healthy Trinity.
Okay.
So she bought Healthy Trinity and she started taking it. She was then going to Norfolk on her holidays, I remember. And it's bizarre. So, you know, sometimes when you speak to patients and something comes back into your mind, and it woke me up one night and I thought, God, Laura, is Healthy Trinity dairy-free? Are the strains all dairy-free in Healthy Trinity? That got me thinking, oh my God, am I going to make it worse rather than better? We tend to worry.
We do,
about
and it wakes us up in the middle of the night.
So got in touch. No, first of all, I did my research, and there's no.
It's dairy-free.
It's dairy-free. Fantastic, dairy-free. So got back in touch with Laura. How's things going? Good. No problems. Seems to be getting a little bit better. That's positive. So I've got a busy schedule, but I said, let's catch up in a month.
Okay.
So caught up in a month. I gave her a call. How's your digestive symptoms? Oh my God, it's so much better. So much better. And she said, do you know what the bizarre thing is? The dairy issue I had. She started exposing herself because that grumbling's gone. She loved dairy. So she started eating a lot more cheese and milk.
Drinking milk.
Drinking milk. And she said, I'm testing the boundaries. I'm thinking, testing the boundaries? Why would you want to test the boundaries? You've had something for this long, and now we've got a resolution. Why would you want to push the boundaries? You know, just be satisfied with we've got a resolution of it. I love dairy. I want dairy back in my life. Okay, fair enough. She said, I drank a whole glass of milk the other day. A whole glass of milk. She said, but it was organic. You know, so that changes. I mean, okay, organic's a lot better. Yeah, we know that. But as if that would make a big deal of difference. But anyway, and I was fine.
So, and the
fine.
rumbling stopped.
So a rumbling stopped. She was now able to tolerate dairy, and she couldn't tolerate dairy before because she got diarrhea when she had dairy. She now, and I followed up before this because I knew we'd got this planned. How's it going, Laura? With it? No problem. Said I don't go crazy with dairy, but I know I can tolerate a decent amount of dairy in my diet and not have any symptoms of dairy intolerance or lactose intolerance.
So that's our hypothesis with this one.
Well, I'm just wondering because what has caused this? And when you think about probiotics, some strains when they're broken down, bile's released, the probiotics are broken down. Some of them release enzymes, lactose enzymes, which can enable you to digest lactase enzymes, which can enable you to digest lactose.
Yes.
Is that the mechanism? But she stopped taking the probiotics now. She's still not got a problem with dairy. Interesting. What's the mechanism there?
Well, probably I would say, I mean, this is the work that we do. It's quite often a working hypothesis, isn't it? Mm. So, yes, I would agree with you that there are going to be some lactase enzymes naturally present in those strains. But we know the beauty of probiotics being that they're visitors. They don't take residency, but they change. They spend money on their way through the digestive tract, and when they do that, they change the landscape.
Yeah,
is the kind of
way that I would look. I could understand resolution of symptoms whilst taking them.
Yes,
but we titrated her off slowly, and you know she's been off them for quite some time now, but there's no dairy issues.
I love that.
Yeah.
Well, thank you, David. As always, it's so great to sit down with you, and I think being able to do this every couple of months would be really interesting for our audience. So thank you so much.
No problem, Tanya.